everyone. So we've just uploaded a lovely yoga video from our friend Catherine at Almond Blossom Yoga. It's a great little session for kids aged 6 and above, including a bit of mindfulness and movement. So have a look on our feed. It's the video before this one. Get involved. So what have you all been up to? I had a film afternoon yesterday afternoon. It was much needed. I watched the second film to Wreck-It Ralph, which is when Ralph breaks the internet. It was really brilliant, and I loved the way they represented the internet as a city to be explored, and it was a nice kind of fun 2 hours of escapism. But then, did get out for our daily walk in the evening. So we are now ready for chapter 3 from The Adventures of Maya the Bee. And this chapter is called The Lake. Dear me, thought Maya after she'd flown off. Oh dear me, I forgot to ask Mr. Peter about the human beings. A gentleman of his wide experience could certainly have told me about them. Perhaps I'll have to meet one myself. Maybe today. Full of high spirits and in a happy mood of adventure, she let her bright eyes rove all over the wide landscape that lay spread out below in all its summer splendour. She came to a large garden gleaming with 1,000 colours. On her way, she met many insects who sang out greetings and wished her a pleasant journey and a good harvest. But every time she met a bee, her heart went pitter-pat, pitter-pat. After all, she felt a little guilty to be idle and was afraid of coming upon acquaintances. Soon, however, she saw that the bees paid not the slightest bit of attention to her. Then all of a sudden, the world seemed to turn upside down. The heavens shone below her in endless depths. At first she was dreadfully frightened and thought she'd flown too far up and lost her way in the sky. But presently she noticed that the trees were mirrored at the edge of the sky, and to her entrancement she realised she was looking at some great basin full of water, which lay blue and clear in the peaceful morning. She let herself down close to the surface. There was her image flying in reflection, the lovely gold of her body shining at her from the water, her bright wings glittering like clear glass, and she observed that she held her little legs properly against her body, as Cassandra had taught her to do. It's bliss to be flying over the surface of water like this, it really is, she thought. Big fish and little fish swam around in the clear element, or seemed to float. Maya took good care not to get too close. She knew there was danger to bees from the race of fishes. On the opposite shore, she was attracted by the water lilies and the rushes. The water lilies with their large round leaves lying outspread on the water like green plates, and the rushes with the sun-warmed reedy stalks. She picked out a leaf well concealed under the tall blades of the rushes. It lay in almost total shade, except for 2 round spots like golden coins. The rushes swayed above in the full sunlight. Glorious, thought the little bee, perfectly glorious. She began to tidy herself up. Putting both ups behind her head, she pulled it forward as if to tear off, but was careful not to pull too hard. Just enough to scrape away the dust. Then, with her little hind legs, she stroked and dragged down her wing sheaths, which sprang back into position, looking brightly bright and glossy. Just as she had completed her toilet, a small seedly blue bottle came out to join her on the leaf. He looked at her in surprise. "What are you doing here on my leaf?" he demanded. Maya was startled. "Is there any objection to a person just resting here a moment or two?" Maya remembered Cassandra telling her that the nation of bees commanded great respect in the insect world. Now, she was going to see if this was true. She was going to see if she, Maya, could compel respect. Nevertheless, her heart beat a little faster because her tone had been very loud. But actually, the bluebottle was frightened. He showed it plainly. When he saw that Maya wasn't going to let anyone lay down the law on her, he backed down. With a surly buzz, he swung himself into a blade that curved above Maya's leaf and said in a much politer tone, talking down to her out of the sunshine, "You ought to be working. As a bee, you certainly ought. But if you want to rest all right, I'll wait here." "There are plenty of leaves," observed Maya. "All rented," said the bluebottle. "Nowadays, one is happy to be able to call a piece of ground one's own. If my predecessor hadn't been snapped up by a frog 2 days ago, I should still be without a proper place to live in. It's not very pleasant to have to hunt for a new lodging every night. Not everyone has such a well-ordered state as you bees. But permit me to introduce myself. My name is Jack Christopher." Maya was silent with terror, thinking how awful it must be to fall into the clutches of a frog. "Are there many frogs in the lake?" she asked, and drew in the very little of the leaf so not to be seen from the water. The bluebottle laughed. "You are giving yourself unnecessary trouble," he jeered. "The frog can see you from below when the sun shines because the leaf is transparent. He sees you sitting on my leaf perfectly. Beside, by the awful idea that maybe a frog was squatting right under her leaf, staring at her with his bulging, hungry eyes, Maya was about to fly off when something dreadful happened. Something for which she was totally unprepared. In the confusion of the first moment, she could not make out just exactly what was happening. She only heard a loud rustling like the wind in dry leaves, then a singing whistle, a loud, angry hunter's cry, and a fine, transparent shadow glided over her leaf. Now she saw fully, and her heart stood in terror. A great, glittering dragonfly had caught hold of poor Jack Christopher and held him tight in his large fangs, sharp as a knife. The blade of the rush bent low beneath her weight. Maya could see them hovering above her, and also mirrored in the clear water below. Jack's screams tore her heart. Without thinking, she cried, "Let the bluebottle go at once, whoever you are. You have no right to interfere with people's habits. You have no right." The dragonfly released Jack from his fangs, but still held him fast with his arms and turned his head towards Maya. She was fearfully frightened by its large grey eyes and vicious pincers, but the glittering of its body and wings fascinated her. They flashed like glass and water and precious stones. The horrifying thing was so huge in size. How could she have been so bold? She was all a tremble. "Why, what's the matter, child?" The dragonfly's tone surprisingly quite friendly. "Let him go," said Maya, and the tears came into her eyes. "His name is Jack Christopher." The dragonfly smiled. "Well, little one," it said, putting on an interested air, though most condescending. Maya stammered helplessly. "Oh, but he's a nice, elegant gentleman, and he's never done you any harm, so far as I know." The dragonfly regarded Jack Christopher. "Yes, he's a dear little fellow," it replied tenderly, and bit Jack's head off. Maya thought she was losing her senses. For a long time she couldn't utter a sound. In horror she listened to the munching and crunching above her head as the body of Jack Christopher the bluebottle was being dismembered. "Don't put on so," said the dragonfly with its mouth full chewing. "Your sensitive doesn't impress me. Are you bees any better? What do you do? Evidently you're still young and haven't looked about in your own house." When the massacre of the drones take place in the summer, the rest of the world is no less shocked and horrified, and I think with greater justification. Maya asked, "Have you finished up there?" She dared not raise her eyes. "One leg still left," replied the dragonfly. "Do please swallow it, and then I'll answer you," cried Maya, who knew that the drones in the hive had to be killed off in the summer, and was provoked by the dragonfly's stupidity. "But don't you dare come a step closer. If you do, I'll use my sting on you." Little Maya had really lost her temper. It was the first time she had mentioned her sting, and the first time she felt glad that she possessed the weapon. The dragonfly threw her a wicked glance. It had finished its meal and sat with its head slightly ducked, fixing Maya with its eyes and looking like a beast of prey about to pounce. The little bee was quite calm now. Where did she get her courage from? She couldn't have told. But she was no longer afraid. She set up a very fine, clear buzzing as she had once heard a sendle do, and then a wasp came near the entrance of when a wasp came near the entrance of a hive. The dragonfly said slowly and threateningly, "Dragonflies live on the best terms with the nations of bees." "Very sensible in them," flashed Maya. "Do you mean that I should be afraid of you?" "Of you?" With a jerk, the dragonfly let go of the rush, which sprang back into its former position and flew off with a whirl and a spark of its wings straight down to the surface of the water, where it made a superb appearance reflecting in the mirror of the lake. You'd have thought there were two dragonflies. Both moved their crystal wings so swiftly and finely that it seemed as though a brilliant sheen of silver was streaming around them. Maya quite forgot her grief over poor Jack Christopher and all her sense of her own danger. How lovely, she cried enthusiastically, clapping her hands. "Do you mean me?" The dragonfly spoke in astonishment, but quickly added, "Yes, I must admit, I am fairly presentable. Yesterday I was flying along the brook, and you should have heard some human beings who were lying on the bank rave over me." "Human beings?" exclaimed Maya. "Oh my, did you see human beings?" "Of course," answered the dragonfly. "But you'll be very interested to know my name, I'm sure." "My name is Lovely Dear." "Oh, do tell me about the human beings," implored Maya after she had introduced herself. The dragonfly seemed won over. She seated herself on the leaf beside Maya, and the little bee let her, knowing Miss Lovely Dear would be careful not to come too close. "Have human beings a sting?" she asked. "Good gracious, what would they do with a sting?" "No, they have worse weapons than us, and they are very dangerous. There isn't a soul who isn't afraid of them, especially of the little ones, whose 2 legs show, the boys." "Do they try to catch you?" asked Maya, breathless with excitement. "Yes, can't you understand why?" said Miss Lovely Dear, glanced at her wings. "I have seldom met a human being who hasn't tried to catch me." "But why?" asked Maya in tremor. "You see," said Miss Lovely Dear with a modest smirk and drooping sideways glance, "there's something attractive about us dragonflies. That's the only reason I know. Some members of our family who let themselves be caught went through the cruelest of tortures and finally died." "Were they eaten up?" "No, not exactly," said Miss Lovely Dear comfortingly. "Not so far as it's known. Man does not feed on dragonflies, but sometimes he has murderous desires or lust for killing, which will probably never be explained. You may not believe it, but cases have actually occurred of the so-called boy men catching dragonflies and pulling off their legs and wings for pure pleasure." "You doubt it, don't you?" "Of course I doubt it," cried Maya. Miss Lovely Dear shrugged her glistening shoulders. Her face looked old with knowledge. "Oh," she said after a pause, grieving and pale, If only one could speak of the things openly. I had a brother who gave promise of a splendid future. Only, I'm sorry to say, he was a little reckless and dreadfully curious. A boy once threw over a net over him, a net fastened to a long pole. Who would dream of a thing like that? Tell me, would you? No, said the little bee. Never. I should never have thought such a thing. The dragonfly looked at her. A black cord was tied around his waist in between his wings so that he could not fly. He couldn't escape. Each time my brother thought he had got his liberty, he'd just be jerked back horribly within the boy's reach. Maya shook her head. You don't even dare think of it, she whispered. If a day passes when I don't think of it, said the dragonfly, I'm sure to dream of it. One misfortune followed another. My brother soon died. Miss Lovely Dear heaved a deep sigh. What did he die of? Asked Maya in genuine sympathy. Miss Lovely Dear could not reply at once. Great tears welled and rolled down her cheeks. He was stuck in a pocket, she snobbed. No one can stand being stuck in a pocket. But what is a pocket? Maya could hardly take in so many new and awful things at once. A pocket, Miss Lovely Dear explained, is a storeroom that men have in their outer hide. And what else do you think was in the pocket when my brother was stuck into it? Oh, the dreadful company in which my poor brother had to draw his last breath. You'll never guess. No, said Maya in a quiver. No, I don't think I can. Honey, perhaps? Not likely, observed Miss Lovely Dear with an air of mingled importance and distress. You'll seldom find honey in pockets of human beings, I tell you. A frog was in the pocket, and a penknife, and a carrot. Well, horrible, whispered Maya. What's a penknife? A penknife, in a way, is a human being's sting, an artificial one. They are denied a sting by nature, so they try to create it themselves. The frog, thank goodness, was nearing his end. One eye was gone, one leg was broken, his lower jaw was dislocated. Yet for all of that, the moment my brother was stuck in the pocket, he hissed at him out of his crooked mouth. As soon as I'm well, I will swallow you. With his remaining eye, he glared at my brother, and in the half-light of the prison you can imagine what an effect the look he gave him must have felt fearful. And something even more horrible happened. The pocket was suddenly shaken, and my brother was pressed against the dying frog and his wings stuck to its cold, wet body. He went off in a faint. Oh, the misery of it all. There are no words to describe it. How did you find all of this out? Maya asked, so horrified she could scarcely frame the question. I'll tell you, replied Miss Lovely Dear. After a while, the boy got hungry and dug into his pocket for the carrot. It was under my brother and the frog, and the boy threw them away at first. I heard my brother's cry for help and found him lying beside the frog on the grass. I reached him only in time to hear the whole story before he breathed his last breath. He put his arms round my neck and kissed me farewell. Then he died, bravely, without complaining, like a little hero. When his crushed wings had given their last quiver, I laid on an oak leaf over his body and went to look for a sprig of forget-me-nots to put upon his grave. Sleep well, my little brother, I cried, and flew off in the quiet of the evening. I flew towards the two red suns, the one in the lake and the one in the sky. No one has ever felt so sad and solemn as I did. Have you ever had sorrow in your life? Perhaps you could tell me some other time. No, said Maya. As a matter of fact, until now I've always been happy. You may thank your lucky stars, said Miss Lovely Dear, with a note of disappointment in her voice. Maya asked the frog. Oh, him, said Miss Lovely Dear. It is presumed met with the end he had deserved. The hard, heartless of him, too frightened a dying person. When I found him on the grass beside my brother, he was trying to get away. but on account of his broken leg and the one eye gone, all he could do was hop around in a circle, and he kept hopping round in a circle. He looked too comical for words. "A stork will soon get ye," I called to him as I flew past. "Poor frog," said little Maya. Poor frog indeed. Poor frog indeed. That's going too far, pitying a frog. The idea, to feel sorry for a frog is like clipping your own wings. You seem to have no principles. Perhaps, but it's hard for me to see anyone suffer. Oh, Miss Lovely Dear comforted her. That's because you're so young. You'll learn to bear it in time. Cheerio, my dear. But I must be getting into the sunshine. It's pretty cold here. Goodbye. A faint rustle and the gleam of 1,000 colours, lovely pale colours like the glints in running water and clear gems. Miss Lovely Dear swang through the green rushes out over the surface of the water. Maya heard her singing in the sunshine. She stood and listened. It was a fine song, with something of the melancholy sweetness of a folk song, and it filled the little bee's heart with mingled happiness and sadness. Softly flows the lovely stream, touched by morning's rosy gleam. Through the alders darted, where the rushes bend and sway, where the water lilies say, "We are golden-hearted." Warm and scented the west winds bring the sun upon my wings, joy among the flowers. Through my life may not be long, golden summer, take my song. Thanks for precious hours. Listen, a white butterfly called to its friend. Listen to the song of the dragonfly. The light creatures rocked close to Maya and rocked away again into the radiant blue day. Then Maya also lifted her wings, buzzed farewell to the silver lake, and flew inland. Well, that took a turn for the unexpected. So lots and lots of new characters we've met in this chapter. I'd like to know what you think. And I wonder if any of you have imagined what Maya the bee looks like, or what the world she's investigating looks like. And if so, please take a picture of any drawings that you may make and send them to us. We'd love to have a look at them. Have a nice evening. See you. Bye.